Valin.
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 No, Valin. Yes.
Yeah, not Valin.
No.
Valin.
Please. Valin.
Okay.
Yeah. Not Valin.
I forgot my violin.
Yeah, but that does not.
Hello, welcome to the Josh Walensky Show. And today I have the great pleasure of having my friend from Paris, Danielle, a great drama and drama diction coach with the Metropolitan Opera for 15 years. Danielle, what have you been doing at the Metropolitan Opera for 15 years?
Being very busy, my darling. I just want to make sure, I don't want to duplicate what you said, it's so beautiful. And I have a guest today, Caterina Secchi. And she's a dramatic mezzo-soprano who has sung at the Teatro Regio di Parma in Italy, as well as many other prestigious opera houses in Italy and in the United States. So I'm very happy to have her, and we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about the French and all the misconceptions. We're going to really, well, learn something. So, I shall start because it's my work today. And I want to say to you that generally there are great misconceptions about the French language. One of the characteristics of the misconceptions is that it's understood to be in the back of the mouth and guttural. Well, actually, that's the Parisian version. The real French is spoken in the Vallée de la Loire, south of Paris, and that's where all the kings built their castles. And I would not credit them for the French, but it's very interesting to walk there, to have the people toiling the ground and say, "Bonjour, madame," without any specific accent, beautiful French pronunciation. Now, as Josh mentioned, I was privileged to work straight for 15 years with all the French productions at the Met, including opera comic versions, meaning the spoken word on stage. So there is a system to the way I teach, and I want to just share with you what makes my system a bit different. Number one, for certain, I always concentrate on vowels, and that's music to the ears of an operatic singer, no doubt, because that's the way an operatic singer should sing. And of course the consonants have their place, but in time. So the second thing that makes this extremely different is that I never ask my student to imitate, not even imitate me. I was trained in a classical theater in Europe. I do not ask people to imitate anyone. I teach the sound speaking, and I teach my students to produce the sound according to the understanding in their brain and what it costs their body to produce it. So it becomes part of their chromosomes. It becomes part of them, and they understand how to produce the sound correctly. So they are not imitators, they are creators. And this is what I want. You know, many people have sung a Dalila. But while it's not wrong to listen to someone whose French is good, it's much better to have for life, after you've worked with me, the right concept of the vowel and using the vowel to pronounce and to interpret also, because these scores were written by geniuses, both the music and the word on top. And we will see as we continue some examples, some outstanding examples of that. and it's really a great joy. What we do also is what we put all the sessions on tape, so that you have everything with you and you can keep it. And the technique I teach is applicable to the spoken word that I have mentioned before. So if we are working with an operatic singer, the operatic singer can go from the singing to the speaking word without stressing, and vice versa. So that's an interesting point of view. It's very practical. And today, I just want to give you a little idea of two main vowels that are the keys of the French language. Now, I mentioned a technique, and I don't have a blackboard, so I'm going to try to do a gesture. Let's say this. So that is supposed to be a parallel line to the floor. And you're supposed to produce all the sounds above that. Why? Because the French requires you to be very forward and also takes a lot of breath. So we don't want to travel up and down and then travel like an accordion. We want to keep it simple. Now, what gives you the height? And that is very important for the American people, because, and the British, but specifically the American, they tend to just droop this part and just swallow the sound. No such thing in French. I will give you an example, and I don't want to be boring, so I promised you some fun, but it's important to hear the ah. The ah, which is above that imaginary line parallel to the floor, and gives you the height where you need to go, and never go below. Now, that is true for everybody. It's a matter of proportion. If you are a bass, it's going to be the same thing within the range of your own voice. So nothing to be concerned about, quite to the contrary. And then there is a sound that is extremely forward, and that's going to require a lot of breath, and that unfortunately has absolutely no equivalent in any other language. And that is the mute. It's a pipe of air parallel to the floor, and it's totally unique. It does not have a U. Most Americans put a little in it. That's, again, I hope you heard it. This is dropping, this is droopy. Actually, nothing like that. No equivalent, no U. The breath of the French language. And every time we sing or we say and unmute, we have to breathe and put it forward. Of course, in speech, we do not give it the same value. But in singing, we have a note, and we have to know where to put it. And incidentally, the U, for example, is very difficult to sing. You cannot sing an U if you don't know how to say because you have to be trained to use your breath and be forward. Caterina, may I impose for a few seconds to ask you to give us a French ah. Ah. Okay, that's good. Could you give us an unmute, please? Okay. May I be conscious of your breathing before emitting the sound? I would appreciate it, because it's key to the unmute.
Could you do the mute for me once more?
Yeah, well, maybe I didn't do it right. It's good. There is a slight tone on top, sweetheart, and maybe it's my fault. I was out of breath.
Oh.
So, oh no, you gave me a UHR. Okay, sweetheart.
Okay.
So remember, it's very parallel to the floor, and you take your diaphragm breathing. Yeah. Okay. I like the sound, but you are dubious on the side, dubious on the, you know, and could you take the same and sostenuto, sustain it, please. That's quite good. That's quite good. It is 1 millimeter a little dark. Of course, we know you are a mezzo, but we agreed that in the concept, in the brain, that should not influence you.
No.
Because actually, everybody knows that the music guides them, right? So if you have something very dramatic, the music gives you the length of the note and the color of the note. So we don't have to worry about. We are back to the very beginning. We're going to do it just once more.
Yes.
Okay, I realize we're short in time. May I do one more?
Yes,
Try.
please.
Much better. Right. And as I looked at you, I saw that you were a little higher, because the trick is never to forget that we don't droop this. Okay? So that's really quite wonderful. So we have 2 vowels. One gives us, if I could draw that line, one, see, French is going to go out of your mouth and go like this. It's as if you had those French window opened, and out of your mouth comes a bird. And the bird goes out and goes up in the sky. That's French. Okay? It's not guttural. It's not thank heaven for little girls. Of course, you know, people made a lot of money with that. But as I said, it's Parisian. It's not true French. Fine. So I would like to ask you, Caterina, you have worked a little bit with me, okay? And you are, of course, a professional, so you are quick to learn. And I'm wondering if you could tell us in 2-3 words what you feel happens to your singing after having studied the French in that way.
I feel that that it's extremely liberating. Everything falls into a wonderful, as you say, straight line. Nothing dips below. One doesn't go back and forth. It's very.
It's a technique.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the one that I find the most difficult to grasp, as you say, that does not exist in Italian or any other language,
And you
is
your
that-
background is Italian.
is the mute. Yes, I'm
Yes,
always,
it's
when I
foreign.
go for it, I'm microscopically off, and that's the one that I find.
Well, you were not ultimately microscopically off, because after you heard mine,
Yes.
you have, of course, a very good ear, and you're able to imitate, but and you do it well. And when you sing, you do a very good job at it, because when you sing, being a professional, you use your breath. And sometimes people hesitate to spend that breath when they speak. Okay? So, also, I remember you saying one day that you find that the clarity of the sound is better.
Oh yes,
You
indeed.
told me that.
Yes.
Yes,
No-
it's
no-
beautiful. It's a little crystal-like on each note. And, of course, we reveal literally the vowels, you know, as you do in Italian.
Yes.
And it does also other things. It sounds very French. You used an interesting word when you said liberating, because I like that word. I know that you are a great professional and you have discipline, so you don't mean going all over the place. But you mean, on the contrary, giving out the right sound and riding on it. And this riding on the sound gives gives part of the interpretation. When a singer has learned to produce the vowels and the phrasing, because as I mentioned before, this is written by geniuses. So the people who wrote the words, they did it to marry the music beautifully.
Yes.
And therefore, the more we pronounce those words with the vowels alive and crystal transparent, the more we have the phrasing, the intent in the character, and the drama. And ultimately, we'll see that, and I'm a bit ahead of myself, but ultimately, we see that we have to learn those vowels, because when they are repetitious within 1 bar or 2 bars, and then you have 6 or 7 of them, you know you have the same sound. You know you have to acknowledge it.
Danielle and Caterina, I want to ask you something as a layman. As a layman in the audience, because this happens to all of us. We hear a singer and we are impressed, but because we're laymen, how can we distinguish if somebody is delivering the vowels properly and professionally, or if we're just hearing some amateur straining their voice? How can we distinguish?
Well, I'll take to answer you, I'll take it from another angle. If you don't know French, how will you know? That's a very good question. I think that if you don't know French, you will feel it. It's like a gut feeling. When a person is on it, it's like an actress that's completely in the character. When a singer is doing it right, people are, oh. And then even if they don't speak French, since we're talking about French, they go backstage and they start speaking to the singer a mile a minute, if they do speak French, thinking the singer speaks French beautifully. It's something that you feel in the harmony, because since it affects also the drama, the public feels it. You know when a person is right on. So from an artistic point of view, you will sense it. You sense that something is right. Because when there is compromise, I think we are all, that's what makes the creation of man in general very interesting, is that we have this ability to perceive artistically and without necessarily having all you need, intellectually. So it will be perceived somehow. But if you want to intellectualize it, did she do right, did she not do right, you won't be able unless you know the language.
But you will sense what is genuine and what is not genuine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, there are some vowels that have to be differentiated, but I'd like to talk about that later. The technique we have been speaking of influences the beauty of the marriage of the sound. Maybe that's something you can think about, and Caterina said you will feel it, because the marriage of the sound of the word with the music is so perfect that it's going to touch you. You're going to feel it. And automatically your brain is going to say, oh my God, she knows French very well. Which sometimes is not the case for a singer. It depends. Caterina speaks French quite well, but her knowledge in how to sing does not come from that. A case in point, Régine Crespin, who was obviously very French, who did the dialogue of the Carmelites at the Metropolitan Opera. And the first production I worked on with Régine, and it was in French. They later had the accredited translation in English. But when she did the French, she studied. She was French, but she studied her score with the vowels and putting emphasis. That's why sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, after we have studied the vowels, we read and we read as we are going to sing it. So, for example, Caterina, we have worked a bit on the Samson, and if you could I think that you have a
Yes.
favorite part there. And if you could give us an example of reading it, not to impress people for the French, no, to read it through the vowels and in tempo, okay?
Okay.
Very good. And don't pressure yourself.
Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mon cœur. This compound vowel, the O and the and the U, is equivalent to an mute. So, mon cœur
Mon
s'ouvre.
cœur.
Yeah, but ou and s'ouvre, et ou is there like soon. This is an equivalent soon. So, mon cœur s'ouvra. Always placing the A. Our two best friends are the A and the mute. So, mon cœur, very good. S'ouvra
s'ouvra
ta
ta
voix.
voix.
Beautiful. And when you have a repetitious vowel, a, ta, well, my friends, give it to me exactly the same way. Okay?
Mon cœur.
No. I saw your mouth here. Mon cœur is
Okay.
not going to go. I always said that this is the auditorium and this is where, we do the sounds. So we keep this available. Not like that, but available. Having the lower lip touching the top, because this is, and when I teach myself after an hour, I become much better. I've almost a British accent because I'm pronouncing and it raises up everything. You feel great, you feel more beautiful. Okay. Mon cœur.
Mon cœur.
Mute. Mon cœur.
Mon cœur.
Beautiful.
Mon cœur s'ouvre à ta voix.
Okay.
Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs.
Oui. But you know that the A, and that I wanted to speak about later, you know that the Le is what
Le.
I call, voilà. Alors, could I hear that, please?
Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs.
Okay. And the Italian crept in a com, because when there is a double consonant, we don't acknowledge it. It's non in Italian. No, it's not Italian. Comme. So we have now two vowels. Okay, no nasal. We have actually. Comme s'ouvre les. So from you probably saw my face, for whomever is looking, it's s'ouvre les fleurs. In the A, I have to come in the mask A. That has an equivalent, let go, but it has to be marked. It has to be acknowledged, okay?
Winding it
Comme
up.
s'ouvre. Take it from come, my darling, please.
Okay. Yeah. Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs.
Okay.
Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs.
Well, that's good.
Thank you. Because, as you say, there is no equivalent in any other language of that.
No, there
It's-
is not.
One
And
has to
yet you
capture
need-
it in the brain and in the bones of the face.
Thank
In the
you.
placement.
Thank you. And it's impossible to do without, but it is freeing. Thank you for using that word at the beginning of our session now, because it is freeing. And because you know very well that in our world today, everybody rushes and nobody uses their breath. We walk around running in the street, and we don't breathe. And sometimes when we speak, we don't breathe in either. So thank God for the French mute, which is called literally the breath of the language.
The breath of the French language.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So it's good for your health. It's good for your beauty. It brings the cheekbones up, and it makes you understood, and it's elegant, and it's not. It's just natural. It's the way it should be. So, could you say the one after au baiser?
Oh yes.
Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs.
Comme s'ouvrent les fleurs
Oui.
au baiser de l'aurore.
Okay. And baiser, which is a kiss, you have to be very careful. You did it fine. You were a little tight, but you did it fine. It's so it's a little more round, in like a baby. And bébé is a baby in French. So au baiser de l'aurore. Mais, oh, mon bien-aimé.
Mais, oh, mon bien-aimé,
Oui,
ma bien-aimée,
oui.
pour mieux sécher mes pleurs,
Oui.
que ta voix parle encore.
Yes, that's very good.
Dis-moi qu'à Dalila, tu reviens pour jamais.
Good.
Redis à ma tendresse les serments,
Redis à ma tendresse
Les-
what?
les-
Good.
les serments d'autrefois, ces serments que j'aimais.
Okay.
Ah, réponds à ma tendresse.
Oui, it's very good. I would love, she's enticing him. Réponds à ma tendresse, okay? Yeah.
Well, I find this really fascinating. You know, when Alexander Pushkin was born, the aristocracy in Russia spoke French
Exactly.
and German and so on, and then he went ahead and he complicated or enriched the pattern by writing everything brilliantly in Russian. And then the aristocracy found itself that it didn't know Russian. So who knew Russian? The peasants, the common people. So they had to go back and learn Russian. But until Alexander Pushkin came on the scene, they worked as hard as you did on French because that was their language. And but you see why it was their language, because French is so beautiful, and so is Russian. My facilitator is telling me that we should wrap up, so
Okay.
I'll let both of you wrap up. But I want to thank you, Danielle, for your brilliant instruction.
Yes, thank you,
No,
Danielle.
And I want to thank you,
Caterina.
Caterina, for what you're doing and the way you're doing it.
Thank
and
you.
And way and your diction and pronunciation is
right.
beautiful.
That's right.
Thanks to
And,
Danielle.
Yeah,
And I have a long way to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I want you to have the last words. Go ahead.
Well, I love the language not because I am French. I love the language because I love Spanish and I appreciate Italian. Because of its qualities and because it means so much. When you know how to use it and when you do not fight it. And that's why it's important to know how to speak it, how to sing it, because you want the language to be a servant to you. And this is why I suppose French was the official language in Europe in the diplomatic corps for a long time. It's because it has subtleties, it has firmness, it has colors, and it is still elegant. If you know how to use it, it's still elegant. So I enjoy thoroughly the sounds, and I enjoy the music. I enjoy the sounds, and we will see examples of poetry over music within operas, and it's a magnificent experience, and I have them in my brain.
Well, this has been
It's-
the Joshua Linsky Show.
It's cut.
Thanks for being with us. And in our next segment, I would like both these ladies to discuss the interaction between student and teacher and the general, a general description of what goes on between a drama coach and a singer, vocalist. Thank you very much
you.
for being with us. And